All right. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Better Know a Birder. I'm Dan Scheinman, Bird Conservation Director for Audubon, Arkansas. Before we begin, a couple administrative things. Everybody is on mute to cut down on background noise. If you have a question for Kenny, you can type that in the chat box at any time. If you're watching us on Facebook, you can type your question in the comment box, and that will be relayed to me to relay to Kenny. So, anyway, my pleasure tonight to introduce one of our great birding friends, Kenny Nichols, who started birding in 1990 and has been an active member of the Arkansas birding community ever since. He has served as secretary of Arkansas Audubon Society for 8 years, and he's been a member of the Arkansas Bird Records Committee for a lot longer than that. He holds the Arkansas Big Day record together with Bo Verser at 168 species. And he has, according to eBird, he has the 13th highest yard list in the country at 244 birds. And we'll get to why that is later. And most impressively, he has seen 386 of the now, I believe, 419 species that have been documented in the state. And together with his birding wife, LaDonna, and occasionally some of his birding friends, he's found 10 first state records, including Barnacle Goose, Barrow's Goldeneye, Great Black-backed Gull, and many others. So without further ado, Kenny, welcome. Thanks for taking time to join us.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah, so let's get started. Let's go to the beginning. And how did you get interested in birds?
Well, I didn't become a birder, I think, the way most people do. I became a birder really, it was a little bit unconventional. The reason I became a birder really was so I could get to know my grandparents better. And to understand that, you have to go back. My grandparents were birders in Ohio before they ever moved to Arkansas in the early 50s. And they moved here. My mother was a young girl then. My grandfather ran a factory in Searcy, and they were birders, but didn't really know anyone. And anyway, when I was a young kid, my grandparents they were big travelers too. They traveled the world and birded all over the world. And when I was a young kid, they would always stop by our house at Christmas or occasionally when they're coming in from a trip. And they would show us video or, home movies or slides, usually slides of a trip, their latest trip to Africa or Asia or wherever. And it was always a lot of fun to see that. And, as the years went by, they would always stop by. And they lived, like I said, they lived in Searcy, but eventually they moved to Chicago and then to Oakland, California, I think by the time I was about 6 or 7 years old. And my mother passed away when I was 13. And of course, it was very hard on my family. But my grandparents, I believe they were truly and very hurt and very, it's understandable that they would be. But as the years passed, they, and I don't want to know why, but they didn't stop by to see me and my brothers maybe as much. I know it was very painful for them, but they did stop by on occasion. But we missed the home movies and the slide shows of their latest bird trips. And as and I became me and my brothers became teenagers, and I think we sort of grew apart from my grandparents a little bit. We'd still speak to them on occasion, but the conversations became less personal over the years. And then LaDonna and I met and got married, and then after we got married. You can always tell what's important to a person by how they spend their free time. And I knew, obviously my grandparents spent all their free time watching birds. So I thought, and I knew that was very important to them. So I wanted to be able to talk to them about what they enjoy doing. And so I think it's late December of '90, I decided to put up a bird feeder, and I wanted to write down all the birds that came to the feeder. And I wanted to call my grandmother and tell her about it. So that's what I did. I put up a feeder, and she gave me a bird book, maybe a year or so before, a National Geographic. And so I made a list of, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 birds that come to the feeder. So I called her. I mean, this was out of the blue. It wasn't the normal birthday or Christmas conversation that we normally had. And it was maybe in late January. And I told her about this, the pine siskin I think we had at the feeder and some of these other birds. I had a sapsucker that was back there. And she was, when I called, she's probably thinking I wanted money or, or somebody was sick or something. But anyway, no, I told her about the birds that we've been seeing, and she was floored, and she was so excited, Dan, and we had something to talk about. So we talked about the birds we've been seeing, and so we had something in common, and so this went on, and I every time I get some new birds, I call her and tell her about them. So we had a lot of fun with these conversations, that we'd never had before, and this went on, and eventually, we weren't seeing some of the birds at the feeder that I would see in the book. I'd ask her, I'd say, Mama, what about this bird? I don't see this bird coming to my feeder. And she's like, oh, honey, she said, you're not going to see that bird at the feeder. You have to go, out to this location or that location to a different habitat to find these birds. So LaDonna and I started our Saturdays. We'd go look for these birds, and she'd tell us where she'd seen them when they lived in Searcy, 20 years before. And Dan, we'd go out there and we'd find, she'd say, well, we saw a blue grosbeak on this road, and we go out that same road and we find a blue grosbeak. And I was just floored. I couldn't believe it. It's just, and she was like a genius or something. Anyway, this went on. And so we, like I said, our relationship grew, and we had a lot of fun, talking about birds every time we'd speak. And, our birding just grew from there. So anyway, that's how we got started. Birding was from so we could have a better relationship with my grandparents, and we did. And eventually, I think the fall of '92, they came back to Searcy and we went birding together, and we had so much fun. We went to Lone Oak, we went to Joe Hogan's, and we went to Anderson's, and drove around there, and they knew all the ducks and they knew all the shorebirds. And I mean, it was just a whole new world for us. We'd never seen before, and we had a lot of fun. And the next spring, they signed us up for our first Audubon meeting, which was at Petty Jean. It was the spring of '93. And I still remember, we got there and all these people there, and I'd read some of the names before the newsletter, because she'd give me a newsletter, and I was sort of starstruck because all these people there, I'd met some of these people that I'd read about in the newsletter that found all these neat birds. And I still remember right outside that first morning, Saturday morning, I walked outside, and it was just misting, barely raining, and Barry Haas was standing out there, and I looked up in a tree, and there was a golden-winged warbler just right there, almost at eye level. And I said, oh my gosh, there's a golden-winged warbler. And Barry said, where? And he said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And he saw it, and it was just a whole new world, and it was just so exciting. And like I said, it grew from there. We went on a field trip with Mel White, and I remember Joanne Rye found a clay-colored sparrow, and it was so exciting. And we, from then on, we were hooked, and it's been a lot of fun since then. Really enjoyed it.
That's a bittersweet story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
When you go to Arkansas Audubon Society meetings, there are many birders go, it's Kenny Nichols, look, it's Kenny Nichols. You're now one of the superstars of the birding world.
I think it's because I've been at it for such a long time. When I first started birding, I mean, I was, 26 maybe, or I guess 25 or 6. And I felt like I'd missed a lot of years. I think you started at a very young age, and people like Mitchell Pruitt starting at such a young age. I felt like I missed a lot of years, and I'm thinking all those years, my teenage years, I could have been, I could have been watching birds. But anyway, and now I feel fortunate, because a lot of people don't really become active and become birders, I think, till they get older, maybe. But anyway, I feel lucky now that I started as young as I did.
Well, your wife LaDonna is a birder too, and you two seem inseparable in the field. Did she need some convincing to get into birds, or did she take to it like you did?
No, she didn't need any convincing at all. She just, we have a lot of things in common. We enjoy doing the same things, and we always have. It's never been a problem. She's never said, "Oh, I'm going to stay home. You go ahead." She's never been that way, you know. And even before we started birding, we like traveling anyway. So it's birding and traveling sort of go together in a way, you know, sightseeing or whatever. And but she's always been right there and never not wanted to go birding. I'll just put it that way.
That's a lovely thing.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. A lot of folks don't have a spouse that is as supportive as she is.
So you've been birding all around the state. You've got to, if you're going to find as many birds as you have. Where's your favorite birding spot in Arkansas?
I think it's really seasonal, but I mean, overall, my favorite spot is right here at our home on Lake Dardanelle. But you know, that's mainly the winter months and spring migration. But I think during you know, the mid to late summer when shorebirds are migrating, you know, we love going to the fish ponds in Prairie County, and we also enjoy Ball Knob National Wildlife Refuge. Those are probably three of our favorite places to bird, you know, in the state. I think for sure.
Well, your yard list, your 244 birds, that's at your house at Lake Dardanelle, right?
Yes.
How is it that you have such a high yard list?
Well, the lake obviously helps a lot. I don't know. It's a good question. I spend a lot of time looking, I guess. And we get a lot of, you know, we got a lot of oddball passerines that, and I think it has to do with, you know, being right here on the lake. You know, in the springtime we get these heavy storms, and if we get a storm in the middle of the night, you know, 4 or 5 in the morning, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning, you can just bet out here there'll be a lot of birds out here, because I think they see that water, and they can't, you know, they don't know how far you know, the water is to get across, so they sort of stop and they build up, and so we end up, you know, with crazy birds like lark bunting, which you saw over here, and you know, the Bullock's oriole. I mean, it's we just I don't know. It's just our location, just a unique location. I think is and going outside and looking all the time, and being lucky.
Yeah, well, also just being knowledgeable and being open to finding new things.
Yeah.
Well, because you've seen a lot of rare birds in the state. You have to see a lot of rare birds to build your state list. You've been responsible for finding a lot of rare birds. Why do you think you've been so successful in finding first state records and other rarities?
I think just what you said, just knowing what to expect. You know, if you go to the fish ponds, you have to know what's possible, and you know, and when. You know, Jeff Wilson was always really good at that. He was always telling me, you know, be on the lookout for this, be on the lookout for that. And you know, in every state around Arkansas, say, has a Barrow's Goldeneye record, you know, we're due for one. So we just go out there and scan the flocks of, you know, these huge flocks of Goldeneyes, and eventually, you know, you'll find one. And that's kind of the way it's been, just knowing what to be looking for and when and where. I think is you know, the big thing.
Well, still, I don't know if anyone goes over to Joe Hogan Fish Hatchery and thinks, maybe I'll find a sharp-tailed sandpiper today. but you sure did.
Well, you know, the reason, you know, that bird there, I mean, we've looked at probably millions of pectoral sandpipers. And when I saw that bird, I actually saw it from behind. And I saw the markings on the flanks, and I knew right then it wasn't a pectoral sandpiper, because they don't have that. You know, they say the way to find a rare bird is to learn the very common birds, know them intimately, know everything about them, and that way when you see something different, you'll know that it truly is different. And I knew right then it was a sharp-tailed sandpiper without even turning around. And but yeah, just knowing all the common birds, knowing them well, really helps you discern a bird that's different out there.
As a reminder, if you have any questions for Kenny, you can type those in the chat box. in Zoom or on in the comment box on Facebook. So you are on the Arkansas Bird Records Committee, as am I, as the newer member. Can you tell us briefly what the Arkansas Bird Records Committee does?
The Bird Records Committee evaluates significant bird sightings that have been reported in the state. That's when someone claims to see something truly special or extraordinary, typically that person will submit a written or photographic documentation to the Bird Records Committee, and the members of the committee then evaluate that record based on that documentation, whether to accept or reject that record and include it into the state's database.
And what's your review philosophy? How do you go about gauging a record? If you haven't seen the bird and there's no photograph that makes it obvious, how do you judge? How do you know?
I don't think it sort of depends. I don't think there's a one size fits all philosophy for each record. I mean, each one I think is different. I think the judging that person's ability, I think, is one thing. Some people, you can write up anything. Anybody can look in a bird book and write up something, and it's not an exact science. The probability of a species showing up, and so there's different ways of looking at it. And obviously, we don't always get it right. I don't think. I don't think anybody does. You just do the best you can, and go with that.
Yeah, and Joe Neal told me, I think Max Parker maybe told him that it's better to reject a good record than accept a bad one. So sometimes you got to err on the side of caution, which is no offense at the observer.
Yeah, I've had records rejected myself. So I mean, it's not, it kind of stings a little bit sometimes. But it happened. I mean, maybe the first time, but it happens, and it just like you said, no offense. It's just so it made me just want to try to do better next time. Making sure I had a photograph, and that always helps a lot right there, having a photograph.
Well, it sure does. But so if a novice birder sees what they think is a rare bird, what do you recommend they do?
Take a picture. That's the big thing, obviously, and try to get someone else to see it, to take notes or to see if they agree with what they think they're seeing.
Someone asks about your opinion on the ivory-billed woodpecker.
My opinion on the ivory-billed woodpecker. I wish we'd have had a good photograph there, just like I was saying. I hope it's still out there, but I seriously have my doubts, and it's too bad. Nice photograph. I mean, I was hoping as much as anybody, and
another question is, so you have a lot of skill, you've got a lot of passion and knowledge. Do you have any sort of memory tricks that you use to help you learn the birds and remember what's out there?
I don't suppose so. I mean, I think we do it so much. We go birding so much. It's just have them all. I mean, I don't know. You just.
Well, if you're going to go birding somewhere new, where now you are a novice because you're going to another country you haven't been to before, do you study? How do you learn those birds?
That's a good question. I just, when I go to another country, I mean, I'm usually like anybody else that's a novice. It's, I mean, really, that's what I feel like when I go to another country where I haven't been. I feel just like someone who's never birded before, because, I mean, not every time, but I mean, we've been overseas so many times now that I know a lot of the birds, but that's kind of the way I feel. We just take mental notes of what you're seeing, and usually there's enough, a leader for the group, and that helps a lot. But I don't have any special memory. Memory abilities or anything like that.
Well, you sure seem superhuman to many of us with your abilities to find rare birds. So, what was your latest out of state birding adventure?
LaDonna and I went to Arizona back in early May, and we stayed in Wilcox, Arizona, and birded around there for a couple of weeks. And I think we picked up. I think I was hoping to get 3 or 4 live birds, and I think we ended up with about 7. So we did good. It was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it. We had fun.
And is there some place in the U.S. you haven't been to that you want to go?
Oh, there are lots of places. Alaska's probably the top of the list. We've never been there, and I'd love to go to Alaska. But I've never birded the Northeast, New England. I never birded that area, nor have I ever been to Washington or Oregon. But I'd love to go the Northeast and see puffins and some of the things up there that we haven't seen. Other than that, I think we've pretty much been everywhere in the U.S., the continental U.S.
What about overseas? What are some of the places you've been to?
Oh, we've been to out of the country. We've been to Mexico and overseas. We've been to Spain. We've been to Belize and Costa Rica. We've been to Ecuador 3 times. We've been to Panama. But so those are some of the places we've been out of the country that we've birded.
What's your life list up to now?
I think it's about 16, 20, I think is what it is.
And where would you want to go outside the country that you haven't been to yet? What's your top overseas destination?
I'd like to go to New Guinea and see some of the birds of paradise. My grandparents are always telling me about those, and she got to see a lot of those. And that would be pretty cool to go to New Guinea and see some of those birds. That would be really neat.
You and me both. Let's plan that trip. Someone asks if you could tell us about a birding experience or a bird sighting you had that was particularly memorable, whether in state or out of state or anywhere. I know there's so many, right?
Yeah, I mean they're all memorable. I don't know. I can't really think of anything that would be. I mean, finding that sharp-tailed sandpiper was, of course, very memorable, and those first state records always stick out. But that's like trying to, say what your favorite bird is. There's so many. I don't have a particular favorite bird.
All right, scratch that question off my list.
I mean, I am kind of partial to the nuthatches. I like the little red-breasted and brown-headed nuthatches. Those are, if I had to pick a favorite, I would kind of say those. But a memorable bird sighting that really stands out. I know we've had some days that were a lot of fun. We had Baxter and I were birding up at Craighead Park in Jonesboro one spring. We had just hundreds and hundreds of warblers up there, and I mean it was just one of those days you kind of dream about. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds of red starts and Tennessees and it was pretty crazy. But I was going to say something. I'd say that maybe.
Yeah, great. Fallouts are amazing. Unfortunately, they are becoming rarer and rarer.
Right.
What's your best yard bird? All the yard birds you have in Lake Dardanelle.
I think probably City Tern. That's not one I'm expecting again. We've had so many crazy birds here. I mean, just in that Royal Tern the other day, we had grasshopper sparrow, sharp-tailed sparrow, the Bullock's oriole. I've had Cape May warbler. So many rare gulls and ducks here. The tufted duck, who my parents came over and they saw that. I know I see them up there. They came over. They actually saw that bird too, and that bird was a lot of fun. I think we had 200 or 300 people came to see that tufted duck over here. Many from out of state.
It's a lot of fun when you or someone else finds a first state record and birders from all over the state come to that one point, and it's a
Oh
good
yeah.
time to see everybody and catch up.
Sure. Oh
Even
yeah,
the Arkansas Audubon Society meetings.
yeah, that's as much fun as anything, getting to talk to people and meet people and all that.
Uh, as a birder, if you weren't living in Arkansas, is there anywhere else you'd rather live?
Maybe Arizona or Southwest Colorado or something. Maybe I'm not sure. We really like Arizona. It's a neat place.
Lots of hummingbirds there, lots of
Yeah,
Mexican strays there.
right. And there's the habitat is so there's so many different habitats from the desert all the way up into the mountains. It's you can go to a lot of neat places in just a short time.
So you're in your house on Lake Dardanelle, and you have built that house yourself, right?
Right.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to be a building contractor, but we quit building about 6 years ago. But LaDonna and I still have some rental property. That's basically what we do now. And I draw house plans. I've done that for, I don't know, 25 years probably. I still do that some, and stay busy doing that. It's more of a hobby than anything, but I do it. It's what it feels like, but because it doesn't feel like work to me. It's fun.
Are there other hobbies you enjoy besides birding and house planning?
Well, like I said, just traveling, but I enjoy chess. I like playing chess. I like crossword puzzles. That's pretty much it, I guess, right there. Mostly birding.
That's how to keep your mind sharp. Crossword puzzles.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. My other grandmother got me. My mother's mother got me into birding, and my dad's mother got me into the crossword puzzle.
Any other questions for Kenny? Well, so last question for me then is, what advice do you have for beginning birders?
Well, I know when I was a beginning birder, I sort of felt overwhelmed at times because I would look at a bird, and then I would look in the bird book, and I would like, you've got to be kidding me. Everything looked the same. And I would just say it'll get better, over time. You'll learn all the different birds. They won't all look alike to you eventually. They'll start looking different, And I know all the sparrows. I look at the sparrows, and I just throw my hands up, and I just say, who knows? It could be any of those. But it gets easier over time. The more you go out and the more you look, the easier it'll get.
And if you find a rare bird, report it to the Bird Records Committee.
That's exactly right.
Or even if you think you found a rare bird, you're not sure, report it to somebody. Let us know and let another birder get on that bird.
That's exactly right.
One more question from the audience. Do you photograph birds too?
I try to. I try to, especially if we see something unusual, I definitely try to get a picture of it, because like I said, it's easy to, prove that that's what you had, even to yourself, because it's easy to second guess what you might have seen. And I do it too. I think everybody does, but I especially if it's something unusual, I definitely try to take a picture. And, but I don't go out and just set out to photograph birds for a day. I don't do that like something like Charles Mills or some people that are really good at that, or Michael
Linds.
Yeah, they're just really good at it. I'm never, LaDonna's a photographer in my family. She's really good, but I just do it to document what we've seen.
Well, maybe I ought to interview LaDonna too, then get her side of the story.
Yeah.
Kenny, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you and getting to know you better. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone joining us today, and tune in tomorrow at 5:30 to learn more about Karen Holiday. So
Sounds good.
have a good night, my friends.
All right. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Bye, Dad. Bye, Nanette.